Good evening and welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Hartford City Plan Commission. All members are present except for Brian Balin, who is absent and excused. I'd like to call this meeting to order and officially welcome back our members after this last election. Ralph Kipper and myself. I'd like to welcome me back. Mr. Kohler, Joe. And our new members, Brian Balin, who will be here at the next Plan Commission meeting, and Dave Paquette, a familiar face that used to sit on the other end of the dais and report to us from the sewer and water folks. And now Dave's helping us out on Plan Commission, which we sincerely appreciate. So thank you, David, for your continued service to the city of Hartford. With that, we have the election of a vice chairperson. Yes, that person who picks up the mantle when I am not here. So we would entertain any folks that would like to step forward, nominating themselves or somebody else. Come on.
Tony. I'd nominate Tony Andrick.
Okay.
Vice chair.
Well, we don't even need a second. We just, okay, Tony Andrick. All right, Don, are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll close. That's for unanimous ballot for Tony Andrick. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Congratulations.
Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Thank you
I already
so
talked
much.
to everybody else. They all said no. So
I drew the short straw.
Yeah, that's it. See what happens when you come in late?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Next is appearances at all of our city meetings. We offer appearances. Anybody wishing to get up from the city, either a business in the city, doing business with the city, or a city resident is welcome to come up to the podium. You get 3 glorious minutes. Any appearances? Third call. Go to the next item, discussion and consideration of an annexation petition at 7.
Mayor,
did you skip 5,
should we just skip over the,
4?
Well, I was going to
minutes?
do that at the end, just
Okay.
kind of give it a twist. No, I'm just kidding.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, I get so excited when we have the appearances, thinking somebody's going to come up and brighten our day. But would have to look for a motion to approve the minutes of April 10th, 2023. Okay, Ralph, motions, second by Scott. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. I will not do appearances again, so we'll go to discussion and consideration of an annexation petition at 7520 West Highway 60, tax key number, get this down, T6-039300Z, to our friends in Canada. So, with that, I am going to give it to our city administrator, Steve Volker.
You received the copy of the annexation petition requests for 11.69 acres located northeast of the intersection of State Trunk Highway 60 and Independence Avenue. The petitioned area consists of tax parcels that are listed on the sheet. These are all in the town of Hartford, obviously, thus the reason we're doing annexation. The address is 7520 and 7542 West State Trunk Highway 60. Tractor Supply Company has an accepted offer to purchase the property and build an approximately 25,500 square foot retail building with fenced outdoor display area. They have requested annexation to receive city sewer and water services. The staff has reviewed, you've all gotten a chance to review the analysis. The staff has reviewed their proposal and recommends approval of the petition for direct annexation by unanimous consent submitted by Ridgeway Investments, LLC, for approximately 11.69 acres located northwest of the intersection of 60 and Independence Avenue. With that, any questions? We have a couple of photos, again, which you've gotten a part of your packet. The corner in question is directly to the east of Quad Graphics. Along with that is a site plan on how this would lay out on that corner.
What county is that in again? Is that Dodge County or is that Washington County?
It's Washington.
Just on the very edge, isn't it?
That's correct.
Okay.
And then they have a design on there as well. I'll flip that around. Yes, questions?
Yeah, is this a change to the smart growth plan by annexing this? And did we have that part of the smart growth plan?
I believe out there that there's existing highway commercial available out there.
Okay.
It is consistent with the smart growth
Yeah,
plan.
that's what I was wondering. Okay, good.
When was the last, or the first time you heard me mention Tractor Supply Company?
This is the first time you've never talked about it before. Now, if they can put a White Castle inside of it, oh my God.
And we get a sidewalk to go out to. That'd be sad.
All three get the trifecta. No,
Memorial Trail.
Exactly, the Memorial Trail,
That's
right
it.
through the pond.
Yep, that's one of the things I thought would be fascinating because, of course, Washington, no place in Washington County is there a Tractor Supply Company. So I thought that would be a reasonable fit for the fact that we have a lot going for it right in the city of Hartford and, of course, the town of Hartford, Rubicon, that whole area out there. I thought it would be something that would be competitive and an interesting thing. And I probably would suggest that the White Castle be on the other side of town. But either way.
We do have representatives from Ridgeway Investments here if you would like them to speak on behalf of the annexation.
Yeah, you'd be more than welcome to, because like I said, I've been a big fan of Tractor Supply Company for quite some time. Actually contacted or reached out to your president right after I became mayor, but I didn't get a response. But I wasn't heartbroken enough to think that it would never happen. So.
Or whatever. The second address.
All righty. Then we would look for a motion to approve the annexation petition.
A motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Joe, second by Dave. Give the new guy one.
Yeah.
That's good. Any additional comments, questions, concerns? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Next, discussion and consideration of a sign permit, 142 North Main Street which is downtown Beveridge. Who will be handling that?
I can handle that.
Okay, Steve Ogre.
So the applicant had actually called this morning and asked if we could postpone this till the next meeting. However, I don't know that it's going to make a difference. The petition is for them to get approval for the signage in which is already on their building. And the problem with the request is the fact of it's currently illegal. So in the general...
Sign or all the signage?
Well, the amount of signs in which they currently have. So currently in commercial buildings, you can only have up to 50% of the total sign or this total window frontage have signs. Currently, they have over 50% with signage. You'll see the two areas with, again, easily 50% of it's with the bottom portion of their signage and additional signage above. They have originally been cited for, A, not having a permit to have those signs in there, but second of all is also the fact of they have too many signs. So they were cited for that and now are requesting a permit to have that. We really can't issue a permit to do something illegally. You can ask for a variance, which is different, but they're not asking for a variance, they're asking for a permit to have this level of signage in their windows. So it is a recommendation of the staff to deny their request and allow them to come back at a future date which they're available to present either A, a variance to the sign ordinance, or B, a proposal for the signs in which they have, reducing that by the amount that takes them over the 50% level.
Questions. First is, were they, I'll use the word, warned about this prior to the
Oh, yeah.
citation? Was that just summarily ignored, or?
So it's been a process to try and get to this point. The there was multiple communications that went to them giving various deadlines to have them submit for an application, or submit for the permit, notifying them that coverage is in excess of what we allow, that the brightness of some of the LEDs are in excess of what we allow. And so that's ultimately, after multiple warning letters, why they were cited for not having the permit. That was last fall, and I want to say the court date for that would have been November, December, something like that. If I recall correctly, I may be incorrect when that actually went to, the citation was actually finalized. So they have submitted the application, however, as Steve mentioned, it is in excess of what they could do. My concern with tabling it for another month is if it's pending, there's not a whole lot of enforcement action we can do, at least by, denying it but asking them to submit an amended application. We now can point to a deadline for them to submit an amended application for the next plan commission meeting that would come into compliance with the code.
Okay, but we're also going to have a vote on this.
Correct.
Okay, and plus, would this go to the city council, or will this stay with the plan commission?
This is just a signed permit, that just stays with the plan commission.
So what they do is by continuing to violate it, even though they're not actually building any goodwill, seeing we have a newer owner there, so it kind of makes me scratch my head as to how one would want to introduce themselves to the city by getting in a quarrel with the city over violation of ordinances, and then instead of being the good corporate citizen and stepping back until they could do it, they just keep doing it, which I think lessens their chance of getting any type of variance, my personal opinion. But it just seems silly that we're doing this. Now, we said we have a fine. How long, is that every day, every week, every month? Is it just one
So
fine?
that, at this point in time, that was a single citation. I think there might have been two different things. I think they were cited for two separate issues, and those went through the municipal, Mid-Moraine Municipal Court process. They were defaulted, they didn't show up to their pretrial, so those fines were imposed.
So this is now costing the city money because of time and all that, because they
Correct.
refuse to
Yep.
obey the ordinance of the city that they very recently moved into and took
Correct.
over a business on Main Street. I
Which-
just want to make that clear of what's going on here.
Right.
So when they do come back, is it going to be just a formality? They're going to submit a paper and nobody's going to be here? Or are they going to come hat in hand and say, yeah, we...
Well, if they submit an application that is in compliance with the code, there's
Right.
really no need for somebody to be here to say, hey, look, this is what we're going to do, and it meets your code requirements. That's fine.
Do we have a time certain then, where will we put a time certain on that? So if they say we will, this is not something that would take more than maybe 90 minutes for them to fix?
That is my concern with tabling this till the next meeting, is this isn't a brand-new business that complied immediately, and now they just happen to not be here. This has been a process for 6+ months that we've been trying to address. It has, the ability to address it has been obviously pushed back a little bit with with Justin Drew's, taking a new position, but we definitely want this to be something that can be addressed expeditiously as soon as we have somebody else in the position so we can move it forward. By denying it, you're not saying they can't get a signed permit, you're just saying you're not meeting the code requirements here. Please submit an amended application or apply for a variance, because that's not what's in front of you, but they could. Either submit an amended application or apply for a variance so that we can consider it at the next meeting, but I don't see any advantage to tabling it at this time.
No, I'm certainly not going to consider tabling it. Go ahead, Joe.
So, right now, it's not compliant. Right now, it's illegal, whatever you guys want to call it. My point on this is there should be some kind of, you should be taking it down and complying to it. Is there any kind of daily or anything like that we have against it to get them into compliance until we can get the paperwork through, if it goes through on a variance?
So, just given the timeline that is likely for the new, planning and zoning administrator, director of community development to come on board, I think that matches up with the submission timelines for the next plan commission meeting. So in other words, they're denied, but they need to submit an amended application or a request for the variance.
But they can still
Within
keep
the
their
time.
signs up. They
Well,
can still
they
keep the
should not
signage.
be, but I don't think that, I don't think that just given the lay of the land and what's on everybody's plates at the moment, that this is we're going to issue a complex citation with daily fines over the next 3 weeks. But again, if they don't submit for the next plan commission meeting, that sets the timeline versus
Right.
pushing it back a full month. And you're right, there are a variety of ways to obtain compliance, and that's something that needs to be discussed as we move forward with this. But I think, denying it today versus delaying action
No,
helps us push that forward.
understood. My big thing then, moving forward is, the getting them to pay attention to this expeditiously, so we deny this.
Yep.
Okay, and then is there a letter then going out from your office to them stating?
Yes.
Yeah, if you could give me that next
Yes.
step. just
Yep,
to-
so the letter would go out stating that the permit has been denied. You need to submit you need to submit a amended application for consideration at the next plan commission meeting by, and I don't remember the submission date.
Right.
But whatever the standard submission date is, I believe it's about 2 weeks before the next plan commission meeting. Failure to do so will result in further actions.
Well,
to obtain
I would
compliance.
think that after that, I mean, seeing this has gone on for 6 months, and this
Yes.
has pretty much been summarily ignored, especially if they didn't show up to the municipal court dates,
Correct.
that we should then consider a daily fine.
Yes,
and-
that is something we can proceed with at some point. That is, again, that's a discussion that was on the radar to have with Common Council about strategy and enforcing these things that unfortunately was pushed to the back burner for a few months when Justin gave his
Understood.
notice. So,
Well, if we could move on that, then,
Yep.
and let them know in your letter that it could go up to and including a daily fine, if this is just going to be ignored on their part.
Yep.
And, yeah, we'll hopefully get their attention. Ralph, go ahead.
Did they buy it like this, or they add these signs?
some of the signs, I believe, are carryovers. They did, I believe, add a lot of the lower signs. Certainly I think the CBD Delta 8, the vape signs, I believe a lot of that is new.
I mean, it's
A
not
lot
like,
of these, smoke and vape shop
For sure.
style signs are new.
to me, it looks messy.
Crazy.
The other thing that I believe the previous owner may have had signs that weren't necessarily in the window, but were visible to the windows.
Correct.
So I think it was, the windows were here, and it just happened to be the cutout of Aaron Rodgers' beer advertisement that was several feet behind. So it wasn't signage in the window, it was more of a display type situation. So, and I do think they moved, if I recall correctly, they moved some of the coolers around, which is part of the reason they have the giant signs in the front, is to cover up the coolers, in the windows, and, yes.
So that's from the side parking lot. What, do we have the view again from the front?
Oh, scroll up a page.
Doesn't look much different.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Doesn't look much different.
No.
Just different.
wanted to make
And you
sure.
can see that Justin did mark, or Leah did mark on the side, the 1/2 point, or the halfway point of the windows.
Right.
So even those bottom signs are past that, and then you have the additional signage that's up top. I also don't know that their application addresses the door, which I also believe has signs, and they would also need to comply with the 50% for the door as well.
Not like this wasn't discussed with Plan Commission over the years.
Correct.
Correct.
Right.
All of the other downtown businesses have sign permits. It's a requirement specifically for the downtown
Right.
business district that there has to be compliance here.
Did you have a question, Tony?
Yeah, just clarification. Steve, you mentioned that this could be possibly submitted as a variance?
Well, so anytime that you want to change to a law that's specific to you because of an incredibly strange hardship, okay? The only way to do that is through a variance to the law, which means I can apply for a variance, but it doesn't help, you can't, and he can't, and you can't, and you can't. So he would have to apply for a variance saying, because of this incredibly unique hardship, I should not have to live up to the law. That's the only way that you get somebody to say, you're different, you're unique, you don't have to live by the law.
So,
We're not saying he would necessarily qualify for a variance.
No.
Right.
right, so I guess my point or question is, could he use this as a means of further putting it out and saying, well, I want to do it there is some detriment to my whatever?
No, because a variance normally has to be, a variance has to be before the fact. So before I break the law, I would like a variance to allow me to break the law. After the fact, you cannot create a variance that, after the fact, oh, by the way, my house is 5 inches too tall, I'd like a variance now. No, that's not going to work.
I just don't want it to be elongated.
Yeah,
and,
right.
you know,
No.
On forever.
You know,
Someone has to mention the denial.
Yeah, what we would do is right, in discussion and consideration, so what we're going to do is ask, as regards to this, if there's somebody who would want to move for it or a move for denial.
Yep.
So,
So my recommendation would be a denial with the direction that an amended application could be submitted for reconsideration.
I'll make a motion.
okay, Ralph, so moved with Ralph, second by Dave.
Well, your name's all over this one.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Next item, discussion and consideration of an airport zoning ordinance and revision.
It's crappy.
So this is for the complete rewrite for the rezoning or the zoning ordinance for the airport. That is my understanding, correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
All right. So this is a zoning ordinance that was prepared by Mead and Hunt, who are our airport consultants. Obviously, I'm not an airport consultant, so I will probably skip over some of the finer details, which I don't know that any of you really care to get into anyway. The general plan here is that we are going to incorporate this into the complete rezoning that is happening. So this is kind of a piece of the puzzle. This is not going for approval until we present the entire package of the zoning code. Because we want to make sure this is referenced appropriately, and so this will be a new chapter along with the zoning code when that's adopted down the road. So skip over that. So basically, there is a airport land use guide that the Bureau of Aeronautics has put forth through the statutory authority to regulate airport and aerospace, spaceport protection. I don't know that we're getting there, but the city has the ability to create extraterritorial zoning codes for the purpose of protecting our airport. There's the biggest requirement here is going to be height requirements that we put in place through a variety of different zones to make sure that we don't end up with something that's too high for our runway approach. There's also some use restrictions within the runway approach areas to make sure that we don't end up with a house right under where somebody's going to drop an airplane. We have kind of a general map of what the different uses are kind of surrounding the airport. You can see in the city, there's a wide variety of like residential uses. Most of the town is going to be farm or farmstead type uses. The airport, if anybody is unfamiliar with it, has two runways. We have the larger, longer runway, which gets more use. We also have a north-south runway that gets less use.
Which is grass.
Which is grass, correct. And then there's about 15,500 annual operations, so landing, takeoffs at the airport. This is kind of the summary of all of the different factors in the zones. So you can see there's a bunch of different, there's the primary surface around it, there's the approach surface, there's there's different shapes that they've put in place to kind of show the slopes at which you can develop, and obviously the biggest concern is the takeoff and landing zones for the runways, which have more strict height restrictions than the side-to-side would, just because of the need to have the approach come down, or have nothing in the approach. We have a map that kind of shows the different zones and where they kind of fall within the maps. You can see east, west, north, south. You have those runway approach zones that limit heights, and you have different spheres that go out that kind of go within the town, and they cover the city as well. Right now, we have Chapter 10 and 13, which regulates the airport and the zoning, or we have some airport zoning within our zoning code. The plan here is to adopt a new zoning code. That was a draft, was it just the presentation? I think the zoning code was part of that 30-page packet, correct? Yes. Yep. So that the 30-page packet that had a summary of everything had a copy of the proposed zoning code. Within it, you can see that it's labeled by XX for the chapter. This has been provided to Grafe, who are our consultants for the whole zoning code rewrite, so they're incorporating that into the zoning code as well. But it will likely be a separate chapter when we adopt that. There's a variety of different land use restrictions that apply to the different zones. So some of it could be something that causes smoke, steam, et cetera, or glares that would interfere with it. There can be electrical and magnetic emissions, which would cause problems with instruments. Another big one would be wildlife attractants. The wildlife in the runway and in the way of the planes is a significant issue that we don't want to attack ducks.
Compost facilities were considered a wildlife attractant. That's
No, I mean, you're attracting birds and animals by the availability of the food, so we don't want that right in the way of the landing zones, so. And again, there's different criteria that you look at with this. So the runway approaches and primary surfaces, you want low density. You have to deal with traffic patterns for zone 2, which is kind of like right around the airport. And then as you go out, you're also restricting based on what's suitable, based on noise and other factors. We do have the ability to administer a zoning code for this purpose under the statutes. So some of you may be familiar with when we adopted some joint zoning requirements for that applied to land divisions with the town. We do not have to do that here. We have the ability to unilaterally control this because we are the governing body for the airport. We can delegate that to the municipalities, but at this time, we're proposing to just regulate the zoning for those purposes within the towns. Certainly, there's any questions, we can pass it along. I know there's a lot to unpack in this, and you're not adopting this today, so if there's questions as we move forward, certainly let us know so we can incorporate those.
I don't know how it would apply to specifically zoning, but what I would really like to see, if there's any possibility, Steve, this might be more in your deal, is to look for possible grant money to bury the power lines that run perpendicular to the runway. And we got big orange balls there, and I know why they're there.
On Main Street,
But
going out of
right,
town.
going out of town. But I would really like to see that stretch buried, so we have no problem with an airplane maybe in some type of distress that's coming down and tangling with power lines. I always thought it rather strange that, they're there and we have the capability or the technology to bury the lines. In fact, there are a lot of lines buried in the city of Hartford. If there's something, I don't know if it'd be through the state, federal, WPPI, whomever, ATI or ATC, whoever, but
It's going to depend on whose lines they are as
Okay.
well.
Well, if we could move on that or get some
Yeah.
answers, I would really like to see that stretch between the two farms, right along the pathway.
You're talking to the east of the airport?
I have talked to the east of the airport, correct. That would be great. Every time I
That's on
drive
Main-
by there. I
Yeah, it's just on Main Street heading out right past.
Right.
Yeah.
Arthur?
Past,
On Arthur Road as well?
before,
It's before Arthur Road.
Before
Arthur Road parallels the runway pretty much.
But there are some orange balls on that road as well.
Yeah, because you got the grass runway.
Right, oh, right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, any place where we have power lines perpendicular to a runway, it would really be great if we could take that section and put it underground for the safety of all concerned.
Yep.
But especially the pilots.
Right. Any other questions with that one? There's no real action item here. It's
Okay.
just,
No, so you're not, it says discussion and consider, so we just discussed it and considering it, but we're
Yep,
not.
so we don't, you don't necessarily need to consider anything today. Again, we're not adopting the new zoning code today. I know it says consideration, I think that's just
Right.
habit.
I like how you guys are pulling it, I like how you're pulling it out and setting it in, because before it's just kind of buried in through.
Correct.
Yeah,
I like
correct.
how you're pulling that out and.
Yeah, we're trying to
specifying it and
do it-
Really blowing it up.
Yeah. We're just
Pulling
trying
it
to
out
do
to-
it piecemeal, so this was one of the pieces of the puzzle. Again, we don't have this, it's not put into a chapter of the code yet, so we will incorporate that into the zoning code.
In the final.
So,
Any other questions anyone else has?
Good, then we go to item number 9, planners report the zoning code rewrite. Steve, you taking that? Or is that Ian?
Still
That's
want to
me.
present
Okay.
I can scroll through. Sorry. Oop, is that?
it? This is just the photos.
Oh, do you have the whole?
No.
Nope, okay.
You do.
Then I do. All right. Sorry. So, as I was just mentioning, we are taking the different pieces of the zoning code and chopping them up as we go through them. So both Grafe is presenting them in limited pieces to us so that we have the ability to go through them. They review, a couple of sections with us, with the planner and I to make sure we know what's going on, to discuss the different, options as we go through. The one piece of the zoning code that we have gone through to this stage is the administrative provisions. So these are the provisions that address the, essentially the creation or the authorities of the of the Plan Commission, the council, et cetera, as we go through who's going to consider different types of permit applications. We're adding in a couple of processes to try to streamline certain aspects. And so some of them are staying the same, some of them are changing. The table I have here is the kind of the biggest piece of it that shows both what is staying the same and what is changing. So I'll run through kind of what's changing so you guys have a good idea. We can have, again, if there's any questions or concerns, we can address those as we move through. So the first one that we're kind of tweaking is the historic district. There is not currently, I don't think there's any current historic districts, but we are changing and we are adding essentially a Class 2 notice under the statutes. The consideration of that is staying the same, though. So really, the only thing that we're changing there is the notice requirement. The same thing for designation of historic structures. So the approval process stays the same, but we're requiring Class 2 notice. Conditional uses, we are changing the process for conditional use. The current process is that the public hearing happens at the Plan Commission level. The Plan Commission makes a recommendation to Common Council. Common Council actually makes the decision. We are changing that and tweaking that, so now Plan Commission would make the determination on the conditional use, and Common Council would be the appeal body. So if somebody doesn't like the or the decision of the Plan Commission, they could appeal to Common Council before they go to Circuit Court. Two reasons for that. One is conditional use laws have changed recently. They've significantly decreased some of the latitude for the discretion for the city in approving and denying conditional uses.
Making it more difficult for a city to deny.
Correct. There are much more stringent requirements for the city to deny conditional uses now. So it makes sense to bring that decision to the Plan Commission level. The other advantage is now we have a local appeal level at the Common Council, which gives us the ability to forestall litigation if it's something that would go to litigation. So it just gives us a local appeal at the Common Council level.
If it makes it that much easier to get conditional uses for everything, then why bother zoning everything? I mean, it gets to the point where why would they want to make it that much more difficult for us to enforce our own zoning ordinances?
I mean, we can go off on all sorts of tangents about why that would happen. I think what it's created is a situation where you're more restrictive about uses that are allowed in districts, because you no longer have the ability to say, oh, let's have this institutional type use, a church or something like that, or a community center in a residential district, but we know discretionarily when that fits the uses in the area. We're not going to allow it anymore because now we have to do traffic impact and all these other things to deny a conditional use. So you just remove it as an approved use, and it's now limited in the districts too.
Are there certain things, and I know I might be opening up Pandora's box but with this question, of saying something along the line of, we don't want a strip club in Hartford, therefore we're going to zone it out of existence?
We don't zone strip clubs out of the existence. We take away their liquor licenses. It's the reality. You don't regulate adult entertainment through zoning because it's extremely difficult to back that. Milwaukee has been sued many, many times over that. You instead just say you can't get a liquor license, which addresses most of the issues.
Okay.
So that's what we do.
Thank you.
So site plan approval is still going to Plan Commission. The biggest thing we changed here is we moved the local appeal for a site plan denial from the Zoning Board of Appeals to Common Council. The thinking behind a lot of these ones of moving the local appeals away from the Zoning Board of Appeals is just that that's a body that meets a handful of times a year. They certainly, I don't want to reduce the value that they serve, but they just aren't immersed into it at the day-to-day level that the Plan Commission or Common Council are. So for site plans, we've moved the local appeal to Common Council. For site plans that just require an administrative review, the local appeal now goes to the Plan Commission. So if it's a site plan change or that can be approved administratively by the zoning administrator, that decision would be appealed to you guys and to the Plan Commission instead of Zoning Board of Appeals. Conversion of a non-conforming use. So this is, again, this would be if you have an existing non-conforming use, but you want to convert the use into something similar and still fall within the non-conforming category. Again, we're moving that decision to Plan Commission with the appeal, which did not previously exist, going to the Common Council. Certificate of historic appropriateness. This is something that doesn't come up that often. Again, review at the administrative level, decision, local appeal at the at Plan Commission, Common Council. We are adding a new there's a couple of new processes. Oh, sorry, the code interpretation, again, is now going to be an administrative decision. Yeah. Sorry, the historic use would go to the Historic Preservation Committee. So again, it's not a big issue. Code interpretation is going to be at the staff level, administrative level, with code interpretation being appealed to the Plan Commission. So if it's something that administratively is handled by the Planning and Zoning Administrator, you could appeal his decision to the Plan Commission for reconsideration. There's several new processes we're proposing. There's an architectural review. We are adding a process for that specifically. It's currently part of the site plan review. We're kind of separating that out because they're kind of two different pieces of the puzzle. It helps us move things along. So for instance, Tractor Supply knows they want to move forward. We can approve their site plan, which moves the building plans along, and we can finalize the approvals for the architectural, features as we move forward, but they can get started on grading and everything else once the site plan is approved. So that helps to kind of separate those out. There is a special exception process which allows for limited exceptions. So it's kind of like, it's not a variance, it is less than a variance, but it's, I'll give you a good example. It would be something along the lines of, somebody needs an exception for ADA requirements. We need a fence because of some ADA requirements. We need to violate setbacks to put a ramp in. That's not going to be approved as a variance. Like, that's not a variance. That's just an exception based on certain circumstances. So there's certain things that fall in that we can work within the zoning code to approve those exceptions without having to go to a full variance consideration and set those standards. The other new process is going to be termination of uses. So this would be, if they're specifically, it's going to fall into non-conforming uses or variances. So it's either voluntary, so if they voluntarily stop, or if we're revoking the right to use to a non-conforming use for some reason. So we've added processes for that. There's also an administrative appeal and those are existing ones. So this is kind of the summary of what we have. There's some specifics in the zoning code, but this is for the most part boilerplate legal, there's setting forth the purposes of the Plan Commission and the zoning code. We're defining the different chapters and regulations that we have that affect the zoning. We're going through and saying, sorry, going to get to the, these are literally the boilerplate things about how the code is written, and definitions and such. Here it is. The standards, how the Plan Commission is, that the plan, or the formation of the Plan Commission, their authorities, the staff that the Plan Commission, that reports to the Plan Commission, et cetera. There's also the same thing of how the appointment of members. So we have the 7 members and we have the alternates that, we need to add the alternate language. They apparently didn't make that change yet. There's the election of officers, there's how the meetings happen, et cetera. So, I mean, this is the boilerplate overall view of the Plan Commission. Certainly, again, this is not being adopted today. You will note that we're doing a brand new chapter. It's going to be chapter 52. So we are completely moving it out of the normal, chapter 13 and moving it to a completely separate area of the code with a new chapter number to make sure it's very obvious when we see, we're going through the fire department and we see, chapter, and we see a reference to chapter 13. We know that's the old chapter and we know that we need to fix that down the road. Problem with recodifying is you're going to have all sorts of cross-references that are problematic. By not using chapter 13 again and by moving it completely, we can't miss those as we go through things in the future. So,
You already received a copy of this prior to the meeting. Did anyone else have any questions or thoughts once you read through this prior to falling asleep?
and again, certainly if you have questions or comments for any of these sections as you go through them, let us know. Email me, email the new planning, new director of community development once they're on board. Because the goal for this is to present this in chunks as we go through so that when we come forward with a 300-page document or whatever it turns out to be for all of it, because the zoning code is awful. It's always the worst part of the code, as far as length, that we're not saying, here, read this novel and adopt it all at once.
The pages on what we had received this time was, well, I think it was 76 or 79 pages. So it wasn't that egregious. I've seen much longer. But
Yeah, this chunk of the zoning code is like 30 pages.
Right.
Yeah, no, I mean, and of that 79 pages, yeah, the zoning code is maybe 30 pages, and then the airport zoning is another 10 or 15.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're trying to make it digestible in chunks, and it also
When are
makes
we
it
looking
easier
at-
to present.
When are we looking at actually codifying the whole thing, when we're voting on the whole, do you have a date?
Well, we had goals. Those have been delayed a little bit. The intent is to be approving it, I want to say September, October, or something like that. It might be, I mean, I think our original goal was September. It might be October now.
Okay.
Just because, again, it's kind of, we're not like delaying things by months, but we have to kind of, we would have been reviewing the next chunk right now. Obviously, that's going to be pushed back a few weeks, so.
Okay.
I
Go
mean,
ahead, Joe.
But you understand that we have a consultant firm that's actually going through and
Yes.
helping us with it, so it's not like we're.
This
we're-
is not
we're-
me doing this. This is
Yeah,
Gray
yeah, it's not
Foods
like we're
doing
just-
this,
It's
correct?
not like we're just waiting for the next person, the next director to come in
Yes.
and pick it up. It's still moving forward.
Yes.
I went to the open house that Justin and the couple had, and it was a good time. Also, Mr. Kepper was there as well. And I like this approach by giving us bits and pieces. We could always go back to this bit too, if nothing's happened. I mean, you're obviously going to change a couple words in there but it still gives us an opportunity to go through and to keep building on it, so we aren't.
I mean, I would be happy to present it all to you at once and watch your
No, no,
eyes
no,
glaze
absolutely not.
glaze over, and we can just run it right through if you want.
No, Dennis isn't here. Dennis Hagan's not here anymore.
But we thought this would be a better approach for you.
No, I like the approach that we're doing, and it gives us a chance to do it, so thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, and that is a good point. We're not, I'm not doing this. We're relying on Grafe. There are certainly areas that we are focusing on as we go through. And there were changes as we went through here. We discussed that table in depth, and then we tweaked certain language. But 75%, especially of these provisions, I would say 90% are boilerplate, so.
Okay, any other questions for Ian or Steve? If not, we stand adjourned to the call of the chair. Thank you, gentlemen.